Well, we're here. Thank you for waiting. Sorry for the late start tonight. We have the latest on Ernesto as it heads towards Bermuda. And in the meantime, we had a really mostly nice day up and down the eastern seaboard with a couple of odd exceptions. And we've got some wet weather coming in for the weekend. So we'll be talking about that. We'll do a little bit of long range and whatever else we decide to talk about here tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use that coupon code.
I'm going to
Use
remain
that
silent for the
coupon
moment. I'm
code.
going to remain silent for the moment here.
Why?
I don't know. We've been on already till 9:03. I figured, well, maybe we could stretch this out till 11 o'clock. No, the coupon code, ladies and gentlemen, as you're well aware, is summer 2024.
And if
Joe,
if you use that coupon code, you'll get.
we'll get 10 big percent off. I'm having
Hmm.
too much fun watching the people on the chat board, pull Stan the Man's chain.
Oh, what about?
Did he did he said yesterday he's only 23 years old, and so they kind of mentioning stuff that he would be much too young to
Oh, okay.
understand.
Yeah.
So
He has a hint of Dr. Mr. Reuben Fairchild to it.
yes, just a hint.
Just a hint. Kind of words things almost the same way as he does. Um, I get the same kind of vibe. Let's put it that way. So
Now
anyway,
he wants to know if you won big tonight.
I won a 15 whole dollars.
Ha!
Okay. I could buy one cigar with that, and that's pretty much and half of another. So it
You could
works.
probably buy if you're going to buy a Philly cigar. You could probably
No, I no, Joe, no, no. If I smoke cigars, they're premium cigars. They're not, no. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your patience tonight for the late start. 9 o'clock is a little bit unusual. I'm actually at this time, I'm usually sort of half asleep, getting ready to go to bed. But I just drove back. I was on the other side. This is the problem with living in Blairsville. I love it here, but when you have to go to the other side of town, it takes me like 30 minutes to get, it's 15, it's about 30 miles. So it takes me 30 minutes to get to the other side of town. Now, in New York, it would take me 30 minutes to just go through just to get through two traffic lights. So I'd rather do the 30 minutes than the 30 miles. But anyway, so we've got the weekend coming up, and I've decided, Joe, that I'm going to make Saturday the better of the two weekend days. I think I think it's possible that we could get away with most of the dayside Saturday without any rain. And Sunday, I think it'll be the other way around. Maybe there's not too much going on in the morning, but from midday on, uh, we're probably going to have showery downpours and even some rumbles of thunder in the mix.
Yeah, I would agree. I think much of the day Saturday here in the Hudson Valley should be dry, albeit a lot cloudier than what we've been accustomed to seeing of late. And I agree with you again about Sunday. Sunday does not look like a great day. Yeah, as I've been saying all along, at least for the last several days, local forecasters are saying if you have any plans this weekend out of doors, don't cancel them because it's not going to be raining all the time. Well, they're right about Saturday. Saturday is the day, if you have anything done out of doors, that's the day to do it. Sunday, I wish you luck. I think it's going to be more often than not wet, showery, and yes, even a bit thundery as well.
Yeah, and if it's not doing that, it's probably going to be cloudy. We're getting to that point in August that the middle of the month, and I've noticed it here too. The sun is not quite as bright as it was during the day side as it was a month ago. I mean, it's still bright, but I've noticed the difference. Plus, we got that smoky haze going on with the wildfire smoke, so there's that. Uh, but oftentimes, when you get into the middle and latter part of August, and these nights start to get longer and longer, it gets a little harder and harder. If you get low clouds that come in during the overnight, they tend to linger longer. And sometimes in
Yeah,
a setup like Sunday, when you've got a southerly flow, it may not break out at all.
yeah, absolutely. It's getting into that time of the year now. The sun is today is the 15th, so when we get to next Wednesday, it will be fully 2 months past the summer solstice. And indeed, the sun is not getting up as high in the sky at midday as it was 2 months ago. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, those of you especially who are early risers, that at least here in the New York metropolitan area, the sun is now rising after 6 o'clock and the sun is setting before 8 o'clock. So, another signal that the days are indeed getting shorter. I think we're losing approximately 2.2 minutes off of the amount of daylight per day now, and it's only going to continue to accelerate some as we approach the autumnal equinox in a little over a month from now.
Correct. And the other thing I noticed is that after, this front's going to linger into Monday and with the upper trough, but if everything moves along, we could start to see improvement beginning Tuesday. And I think we're going to have another stretch of reasonable temperatures for this time of year and reasonable dew points.
Right, and it looks like the transition day back to nice weather. Excuse me.
It's all right.
The transition back to lovely weather will probably be somewhere around Tuesday of next week, and again, it looks like Wednesday and Thursday look pretty nice.
Yes, agreed. All right, Ernesto, there's a reconnaissance aircraft there right now, and it just made it past Joe, 971 millibars. But there's been dry air that's come into the circulation, so this probably won't get to a major hurricane. It still has it's still only at 26 and a half ish north, so it does have some time if it wants to suddenly deepen into a strong Cat 2 or even a borderline Cat 3. But it's going to be a difficult task to pull off because there is dry air, and you can sort of see thinness in the bands here. They were a little more pronounced earlier. There's also at least what looks like an oblong shaped eye that's trying to become a little more distinct. But I'd be curious to see some future fixes, see if the pressure goes down below this 971 level. And I do have a satellite view here that we can take a look at, and you can see it sort of spinning away here earlier today. And again, that drier air kind of getting in there to some extent. And I'm just going to give it a quick refresh now. And you can see right there a little blow up of some thunderstorms going on the east side. So it's got a fairly decent structure, and Bermuda is uh, up to the northeast, up to the northeast of that, and this thing it looks like it's going to come. The center is going to pass very, very close to Bermuda itself.
Right, the Saturday is the day that probably much of that day is going to be a nasty day if you are on the island of Bermuda or the islands of Bermuda, with showery rains, strong winds, gusty and possibly damaging winds, as the storm indeed passes closest to Bermuda during the day, probably sometime in the early to middle part of the day on Saturday, and then the storm will take a track to the northeast, and it not is not likely at this moment in time to make any kind of landfall after that, but it is going to come rather precariously close to the Avalon Peninsula of Newfoundland, probably sometime in the late night hours of Monday of next week, Monday being the 19th of August. And we've been saying, Joe, for the last few years, one of the hot spots for tropical cyclones, or the magnets for tropical cyclones, has been Atlantic Canada. Uh, it's not been necessarily, Caribbean or Florida or Puerto Rico. There have been some significant storms that have come very close to or made landfall over parts of Atlantic Canada. This one, again, does not, and I say this with quote marks, does not at this moment look like it's going to make landfall anywhere in Atlantic Canada, but it is going to come very, very close to the southeastern part of Newfoundland, the Avalon Peninsula. Again, probably sometime late Monday or Monday night. So, I mean, if you live there in that part of Newfoundland, you're going to be experiencing quite a bit of rain, some strong gusty winds, maybe not necessarily hurricane force, but it's going to be pretty nasty. So they'll certainly, and at least in part of Atlantic Canada, will remember the name Ernesto before this week is over.
Ernesto is at 26.6 north, 68.4 west on the last advisory, 450 miles southwest of Bermuda. That maximum winds on the advisory now 90 miles an hour, moving north or 010 degrees at 13 miles an hour. And the pressure they carry on the advisory is 970 millibars, 28.64 inches. The Hurricane Center track really hasn't changed very much. It's been slowing down, and it may actually slow down a bit more. Um, Approaching Bermuda sometime early Saturday morning, and they have it as a hurricane. They don't have it as a major, but they do say on the advisory that it could become close to a major. And as we check out the guidance here, this is the 0Z guidance. Just about all the models have it at least at a 2. A couple of them bring it up to a Cat 3, and then they sort of leave it there out to about 96 hours before they start to weaken it down. And this is probably when it's up, north of 50 degrees north that they start to bring the models start to bring the winds down on it. And as far as the tracks are concerned, on the 0Z guidance, uh, a few of the models bring it into southeastern Newfoundland. Looks like about 4 of them do. Another couple of them have it just skimming the southeastern island. Is that a peninsula there, or is it an island?
It's the Avalon
Avalon
Peninsula.
Peninsula.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean they have a couple of several tracks to the northwest of that that probably go pretty close to St. John's, and several tracks that are skimming the Avalon Peninsula. The other ones are just offshore. So, at the very least, it's going to be a close call for southeastern Newfoundland as it goes by on Monday, as Joe uh, pointed out. Now, back in the U.S., as we take a look at the watches and warnings, so we still have heat advisories up for the lower Mississippi Valley and the Gulf states into western Alabama, as far west as central Texas, and areas of excessive heat warning from northeast Texas through Arkansas into western Mississippi and northern Louisiana. On the northern edge of that, in northern Arkansas, northwestern Arkansas, much of north central and northeastern Oklahoma into southern Missouri, and even into southern Illinois and parts of western Kentucky. We've got a working severe thunderstorm watch, also a severe thunderstorm watch in northern Missouri and southern Iowa. Out in the west, we still have issues with uh, wildfire smoke, especially in the counties in Nevada and some of them in the Sierra Nevadas in California, also up in parts of Idaho and Wyoming. And we also have flood watches up for a string of counties running right down the middle of the state of Washington and into eastern Oregon. So must be, must be some heavy rains, maybe high elevation heavy rains where there's still, there's always those mountains up there in northern Washington State. Some of the very higher tops have snow cover on them, so maybe the flood watches are up for those. I'm going to just take a look and see flash flood watch for the the northern Cascades. I'm going to see if they give an elevation here. Uh, they're saying heavy rainfall over burn scars. That's something new. I've never seen that. Heavy rain over burn scars in the North Cascades is possible during the period of the watch. Rainfall could trigger flash flooding and debris flows in and near recent wildfire burn scars. So apparently, uh, here's a sort of residual effect from some of the wildfires that have been going on in parts of the Northwest that um, any kind of heavy rain causes flash flooding with a low threshold for it to happen. That's an interesting phenomenon. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either. That's interesting. And now, why is it that if they burn scars, they don't have burn the B and the S capitalized if it was the name of a place
No, it's not a.
or
Well,
name of a
it's
location or
but it's
whatever.
not the name of a place.
Well, what is it then?
No, the burns. In other words, the wildfires. Okay, the
Burn scars.
burn scar. Right. Apparently, it scars the ground in a certain way that when it rains, it causes flash flooding.
Right.
Here's another one.
You could also call it scorched burns or whatever. I
Right.
don't know.
Okay. So yeah. So I'm looking in Oregon, for example. I'm reading the flash flood watch that they have up. They just call it burn areas. Flash
Right.
flood watch for the 2024 burn areas associated with active wildfires in effect from Saturday afternoon through late Saturday night. Flash flooding and debris flows by excessive rainfall over 2024 burn areas associated with active wildfires. So there you go. I guess when they get wildfires out there, um, it creates a condition with the ground, and if it rains on that ground, that water just completely runs off. I guess when you think about it, if it's a really bad wildfire, the ground is going to get baked to cement.
Yeah. Well, indeed.
You know,
As Cassia points out, burned areas for not absorb or yeah, burned areas for not absorb water. Do not absorb water.
right? There you go. All right, here's our satellite loop tonight. And there were actually some thunderstorms this morning that formed up in Maine. And if you look closely, you can actually see some lightning strikes from an upper trough that was dropping southward all day long from northern New England down to off to southeastern New England. And they had some thunderstorms that rolled through southeastern New England, and you can see the lightning strikes there. SPC this afternoon had put up a marginal risk for severe weather there at the last minute. Ernesto is visible on the lower right, and we've got lightning strikes going on in the middle Mississippi Valley back into Oklahoma and North Texas, and also in parts of South Louisiana, as well as up in the Northwest. We're seeing some lightning strikes in parts of Idaho, western Montana, and into Oregon and Washington State, and we can verify all of that on the radar. There's a cluster of storms right now, Joe, moving down I-91 in Massachusetts. From there eastward, probably to about, but not quite to Worcester, and that's moving southward. So if those cells hold together, they'll be moving into northern Connecticut soon, and you'll be hearing some kabooms if they last. The ones that were in southeastern Massachusetts are now offshore. We've got showers back in the northern lakes that extend southeastward to Ohio, with a thunderstorm or two embedded in that. Some severe weather and severe thunderstorms in parts of south central Missouri and southern Illinois, and continuing through Oklahoma on a diagonal from northeast to southwest into West Texas. And we've got clusters of thunderstorms up in the northwest with a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings there. Storm Prediction Center has for tonight a big area of slight risk in Illinois, Missouri, southeastern Iowa, western Indiana, going back into northeastern Oklahoma. And that comes, by the way, with a 2% tornado risk for much of that area. Tomorrow, it's the Ohio Valley and the lower lakes down to the Tennessee Valley, and then west into the Central Plains, where we have a marginal to slight risk and tornado risk that is less than 2% in all areas. And on day three, and this is Saturday into Sunday, marginal risk central and western Pennsylvania, central and western New York, much of Ohio, all of West Virginia, most of Virginia, down the Appalachians into North and South Carolina, northern Georgia, across to Alabama, Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, and then back east across Kentucky and Tennessee. And I think for Sunday, Joe, they'll probably have a marginal risk set up. I would kind of think that they'll have it somewhere in the Northeast and Mid Atlantic states, and maybe even a little bit further south than that.
Yeah, probably. I would think if you just by sheer extrapolation from days 1 and 2, you move it from 2 to 3, and then you extrapolate out to a 4, which would be Sunday. It would probably be encompassing a good part of the Northeast. And it is going to be kind of one of those kind of cloudy, showery, thundery days, and I guess depending upon who gets what in terms of sunshine and midday or afternoon heating will determine just how potent, how severe any one given thunderstorm or cluster of storms will get. But it does not look very. If again for this weekend, if you have anything planned out of doors, do it Saturday or try to do it Saturday. Sunday doesn't look very pretty.
Half inch to inch and a half plus areas of rain from northern Alabama and northern Georgia up the Appalachians through Pennsylvania and upstate New York and into northern New England. It's a little bit uneven near the coast where you've got some areas in Virginia and North Carolina indicated to get less than a half an inch, as well as southern areas of South Carolina and Georgia into northern Florida also shown to get not get much rain, but then the amounts increase as you go north up into North Georgia and in through Tennessee and Kentucky. There's over the next 7 days, less than a quarter of an inch of rain through much of the west, except for a strip in central Utah and northwest Arizona, and also up into parts of the Pacific Northwest. As far as flash flooding is concerned tonight, if you're going to see it, you're going to see it in the area of severe weather risk in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. And then tomorrow, it's further east, eastern Tennessee, northwest Georgia, northeastern Alabama. The marginal risk goes up into Ohio and western Pennsylvania and eastern Michigan. And on day three, we've got marginal risk for much of upstate New York, as far east as northwest New Jersey, uh, all of Pennsylvania, northern Delaware, Maryland, western Virginia, West Virginia, down the Appalachians into eastern and central Tennessee, uh, much of Alabama, northern Georgia, and western South and North Carolina. So everything we talked about yesterday, really, there's not much different to, today model wise. It's not like anything's really changed very much. The East Coast weather this weekend, Joe, would really Ernesto is holding up, is creating a traffic jam. So while Ernesto is out there running northward somewhere along 65 degrees west, it's preventing this upper trough and cold front from just doing its thing, moving through and getting out of the way. So instead, it gets hung up. And while there probably will be some showers and storms around late Saturday and Saturday night, you can see the GFS is rather bullish on that idea. Not only not only near the coastal plain, but also more so well inland and going west into New York and Pennsylvania and down into West Virginia, western North and South Carolina, and then overnight into Sunday morning. Then they kind of die down somewhat, but they don't disappear completely. And then you got the hurricane to the east, and then they fire up again during the afternoon into Sunday night into Monday, and then we wait for the upper trough to come through on Monday with more showers and storms. And then once that goes by, I see a 558 thickness into northwest, northeast Pennsylvania, Joe, by Tuesday morning.
That high pressure system that is building toward us from the Great Lakes looks like it'll be large enough and expansive enough to encompass more than just a day or two. Tuesday, I mentioned in my Facebook forecast, maybe a shower, maybe, but the one thing about Tuesday that will be noticeable will be the decline in dew point temperatures. And by Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be fully in this very lovely airflow, air mass. And if you got, outdoor activities for next week, then certainly Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe even Tuesday might be the days to do it.
Look at these 40 dew points, Joe. 45 dew point in northern New Jersey, 43 up near Albany, western Mass, 48 dew point in central Virginia, 45 dew point in southern West Virginia, 47 dew point in eastern Tennessee, 52 dew point for me. And this is on Tuesday. And then we go into Wednesday. We're looking at uh, really delightful dew points Tuesday and Wednesday, and still hanging on to dew points in the low and mid 50s Thursday and Friday and Saturday. And they really don't start to come up until we get to maybe next Monday, because we're still not that unreasonable next Sunday, around 60 or so. But
When we
then they
talk about
start.
next, when you talk about next Monday, you're talking about the 26th, correct?
Correct. Yes. Correct. And of course, Ernesto's part of this equation here because as it moves up into the northern latitudes, it gets involved in the upper air circulation and helps to pull down It's nice, dry Canadian air. And the other thing I would point out is in the longer range, still kind of thinking, and I said this yesterday, I'm still kind of thinking that toward the end of the month, we probably maybe will get one, excuse me, one more pattern where we get into a ridge position and we start to heat up a bit. But I have to tell you, the northern part of the jet stream seems to want to be especially active here. So there's no guarantee that that's going to happen.
That's if we have a active northern jet stream, you're absolutely right. We may see. I'm not saying somebody on the chat board said if we've seen the end of 90-degree temperatures. Not necessarily. I mean, we've had heck. I think several years ago we had the last 90-degree temperature in early October. Not saying that that's going to happen, but as we get into September, it starts getting more difficult for us to see that 90-degree temperature level attained here, at least in the New York area and here in the Northeast.
Yeah, you got to have you really have to have a strong eastern ridge for that to occur when you start to get into September.
And we may have used that.
Particularly the second half of the month. I mean, there used to be freakish occurrences when it would get that warm that late. They seem to happen more often lately in the last number of years, but such is life. But uh, you know, if this troughing in the east persists going into September, it might be a bit different this time around.
Well, maybe we used up all of the, not all of it, but most of the hot and humid and sticky and oppressive weather, during July into the early part of August. And even part of June. I mean, I've noticed that whenever we've had, we kick off with that kind of weather for the summer season, it never really lasts the entire summer. I mean, it seems like it's concentrated over a 30 to 45 day interval, and then after that, we trail toward something different, and something different for us after the oppressively humid conditions we went through seemingly day after day, week after week, the late June, July, and into the first part of August. It seems now that we're looking at a pattern where we're going to be seeing, maybe some drier and not so hot weather as we move through the end of August and on into September. Again, we'll see.
Yeah. So, the late start has gotten kind of thrown me off a little bit. I have Briller Jeopardy, but what if we just save that till Sunday? And
Sure. Well, I
I
said
mean,
it while we were waiting for you on the chat board. I was going back and forth with folks, and I said, I suspect this will be a relatively short show tonight. Aside from Ernesto, there's really no headline making or major breaking weather stories that are taking place. So
no, we're kind of in this mode here with the hurricane out. Granted, it's a big deal for Bermuda, but that's Bermuda, and that and not for the east coast of the United States. So, yeah, it is a bit on the quiet side.
yeah,
So on that note, let's call it a night, and we'll be back Sunday, folks, at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time. Okay.
yes, and the late,
The
late,
late,
late.
late, late
Oh,
show with Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee with special guest Charlie Chan and the chat room crew.
yes,
Uh,
the famous line that after Ralph knocked over all the pots and pans on the floor doing that commercial, and as he's helping Ralph up, Norton looks directly into the camera and says, "And now back to Charlie Chan."
all right, folks. Look, have a great weekend. I'm going to go count my $15, and we'll see you. We'll see you all on Sunday. Okay.
See you then, folks.
Night, night.